So with me today we have Matthew Hudson, Head of Development at TfL, Paul Monk from Cubic, sorry, and Intrigo from Orbiter Technologies. So Matthew, would you like to give a short introduction of yourself?
Hello everybody. So Matthew Hudson, Head of Business Development at TfL. I was reflecting yesterday, I drove around the Aldwych and went past the Waldorf Hotel. Who was at transport ticketing in the Waldorf Hotel? Was it 5 years ago? Yeah, there's a few hands going up there. So it just made me reflect on where things have moved on over the time. I think it's very interesting what has happened with EMV, and I know that's what debate is here. I'm not sure where this debate will lead, because I think what's interesting from my perspective is I've worked with a lot of transit operators in the UK and Europe, trying to understand how to unlock this. And part of me, having battled at it for 2.5 years, I'm probably on a bit of a low at the moment. But it's interesting to see what challenges we've tried to come and try to address, which we can address later.
Hi, I'm Paul Monk, Cubic. I guess I've been in this industry now for about 20 years, and during that time, one of the things I've seen is that technology comes, technology matures, technology gets to the point you can deploy it. Then you hit the challenges. That's the point at which the business has to take over, the policy has to be in place, the environment has to be correct in order for then the technology to actually be useful, cost-effective, productive for the operators. And we've seen over the years, NFC being a classic example, technology was there 10 years ago. What we're seeing now is the ecosystem coming together, and all Apple have done is pull their arms around that and actually turn it into something that makes sense to the consumer. And I think we're in a similar position now with contactless payments. We've seen contactless cards being out for a while. For those of us who are part of standards bodies, we've seen these guys come to the party, join, understand what it is to play, actually start taking the lead in things. The challenge now is, how do we actually make sense of this? How do the operators actually join up? Not everyone is a TfL, not everyone has either the buying power or the passenger base of TfL, and actually it's all about courses for courses, what makes sense for those customers. So I think that's the kind of things we're getting to.
Hello everybody, my name is Yannick Legoff. I'm working for Overture as head of transport. So a few words about Overture, because somebody does not know Overture technology. So Overture technology is a leader in digital security solutions for the mobility space. Overture is present on payment, telecom, and IT business. Today on the transport market, we are quite more visible from the last 2 years. So we are providing a different product on plastic card, smart ticket, NFC SIM card, and embedded secure element. That for the transport. And we are also driving the big challenge of the bank industry today on moving to dual interface card. So we are the leader on this market.
Oh, okay, I'm mic'd up. So great. So one of the first things I'd like us to discuss today are the barriers of entry. So we've seen demand, we've seen interest from consumers, and the technology, as we said, is there. So let's try to see what some of these constraints, some of the difficulties have been present in the market so far. So we've discussed some of the points, and I think one of the key ones to start with is the vision. You mentioned it, you know, that TfL had a very clear vision a couple of years ago. So Matthew, can you take us through, you know, the thought process when you decided to go with EMV?
Yeah, I've mentioned this before when I've spoken. It's about the business case. Everything we do is about increasing revenues or decreasing costs. Whether you're public or private, that is it. So going back 8 years now, when we looked at the problem, we were examining voice as a technology. It does very well. How can we improve it for our customer? How can we reduce the costs? And that was what drove our vision. You know, we weren't chosen to say, you know, EMV is the right answer. We looked at all technologies. We did an impassioned assessment. We worked out what we thought was the right answer for our business, and it was about reducing costs. So even before the crash, we came in saying we've got to work out how to reduce costs, and that's what drove us. And I think I would reflect Paul's comment here. You know, the technology is not the important thing. The issue is, I've got a service to provide, what's my service design, and how can I make that reduce costs? So reducing those issues of putting cards in people's hands, trying to explain to them what top-up is, how to buy a ticket, all the staff that have to help people understand. You know, my classic line is, you land in London, you need to buy a zone 1 to 6 travel card. What's a zone? What's 1 to 6? What's a travel card? You know, customers don't understand that. Remove that issue, it becomes a lot easier. So for us, it's about service, driving down costs, or increasing revenue.
A very important point you made, you said the availability of the card.
Yep.
So obviously when you started thinking about this 5 years ago, contactless payments was its infancy. Do you think that now we're at the point where we're comfortable taking it as a viable option? And I think, Yannick, you obviously being on that side of the industry, what is your view on this matter?
So what we see
So what we see today, the market about dual interface card, which means EMV card with contact and contactless interface, is that the market is going up, but differently on the different places over the world. So if can give you some figures in projection to 2015, what we see that it's in Europe, we have 55% of the issued card which would be dual interface card. In Asia it's 80%, because in China it's 100% of the cards. In China it's billion. It's normal. In RMEA it's 27%. In LATAM it's 20%. In US it will be 17%, and in Canada it's 100%. So what you can see in fact for the world is there is really a huge difference of deployment of dual interface, so which can have an impact on EMV, open payment, and transport.
So if the cards are there, the technology is there, should we look then at also the expertise, the availability of suppliers that can actually bring the acceptance, the technology to a city? So do we think that at this stage we're at the point where this is possible, this is available?
There's no doubt there's a very small subset.
I'll sell your services, Paul.
There is a small subset of people who have done this. I don't think anyone's going to debate that. It brings a unique set of challenges into a systems integrator. If I look at, say, take London, we've got gates that take barcodes, magnetic tickets, Oyster, ITSO, EMV, 5 different ticketing solutions, all seemingly solving the same problem, but being taken as 5 different problems, and hence 5 different solutions. Often what you're not looking for is an expert in one area, you need an expert in them all, because actually you can't just switch the system off for a week while you're bringing open payments. This has to come in seamlessly. When the upgrade for London was done, ITSO came in at the same time. Huge upgrade to the system, huge additional capability, additional means of payment. And you have to do that. You need experts in comms, you need experts in card security, you need experts in, and actually it's not just about EMV. You're not putting just a reader on a gate. You're enabling a whole end-to-end system to enable this.
So which comes to a matter of interoperability. So you want all means of payment that are accepted at network to be offering the same experience to cardholders with minimal impact. So you see from the operator side and so, the acceptance side, you have those devices, but what we have seen, for example, in the payment industry, we have our own challenges around the world to offer the same platform, using Visa card, whatever you want. There is that need of, we call it stability, we call it interoperability, but having the same device, the same behavior, and that's on the technology, on the terminal, but also on the cards. So, and that's why I'm looking at Yannick now, on the card perspective, obviously these cards are now distributed globally, but how do you see the progression amongst payment cards and also the non-payment cards, so the traditional MyFair and the Spire cards?
What we see on the market, it's clear that the EMV open payment cards are going very fast because it's driven also by the retail market, as you said. We saw also that I would say the traditional transport card is still there and still used and still purchased. Today we see that the growth of this card is going up also. So I will not say that today one card will replace another one. I will not say that it's a new media added and with its facility. And as we said, in the open card it's interoperable. We can use it everywhere. It's what we see on the retail network. So we should see the same in the transport network, which is not the case with the other normal transport card, because each system is implementing its own implementation.
And
I just want to add, Bonnie, your comment about skills and people out there to do this. I mean, you know, the thought that strikes me is TfL took 8 years to get to September last year. You know, it was a hard slog doing lots of things for new. Who's out there at the moment? Manchester looking at EMV, Budapest looking at EMV. You know, this market's still going to take a long time because Paul's hit it nail on the head. It's about bringing all those services together. You know, the web page still has to work while the reader's being changed, while the gate has to work, while the cables have to work. Those are the issues, and I think we've got to accept that the market is not yet there to just roll this out. You know, hopefully the next person will take half the time that London did, and then half again as the market matures. And I think that's where we are at the moment, is because you've got all the elements to bring together, it's going to be a slow process just to sort of keep delivering it, build up the skills, build up the knowledge, and keep progressing. That's the reality, I think, of where we're going in the next 10 years.
So I think we're seeing that technology is there, expertise is there, interoperability can be there. So if we focus now, so what are the actual barriers? One of the items that comes very often is obviously the business case. Is it financially viable? We believe that we've seen examples where it actually stacks up. It can make sense. But is it also a matter of scale? So London, one of the largest cities in Europe, has been able to do it. Do you think that smaller cities, less modes of transport, or just fewer modes of transport, so fewer buses, fewer trams, will have other challenges which cannot be justified by the scale of London?
Shall I go first as operator?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know whether people know the story here, but I'll let a little secret, which was it's so that wonderful national standard that's prolific in all the smart card schemes outside of London. That was being pushed, and we were asked to upgrade our readers to read the ITSO standard, and the government kindly gave us a lot of money to upgrade those readers to read that standard, which was great, because while Paul was there doing that, we said upgrade it to EMV at the same time. You know, £15 million to go and replace a load of readers is a lot of money. Going back to our comms, we had to go and replace all our comms because it was 15 years old on some older standard. That was a large investment. Luckily, it was ready to invest anyway, but that sort of volume of expenditure to invest in readers, and those that are operators at the moment, we all know we buy a set of gates to last 20 years. You buy a reader, you want to leave it for 10, 15 years. There's this, our funding is a sort of go cap in hand for a business case to get the money to step up to the next level. And often it's driven by, look, the failure rates are getting so high, we need to invest because there's a clear business case. And what you find in the transport industry is a lot of people at that step, I'm running along, it's getting more and more expensive, I'll step up to the next level. So the question is, where are people in that cycle? If people have bought a load of equipment recently, great, there's a new standard coming along, but I don't have a business case to invest, it's that big investment.
So in the case, would you say that the size of the city doesn't matter, it's technology will progress, and it's a matter of adopting the right technology at the right time?
Yep.
I think you've also got the environment to consider, so there's no point thinking you're going to get the benefits if no banks in the area have issued contactless cards. Or you've just, as you say, you've just invested a fortune in the system you have. Where do you think the benefit's going to come from? You haven't got payback on that. And I think it's very much a question of trying to understand what the problem is you think you're trying to solve by introducing the payment method. It may well be that if the city you're talking about, this small town that's going to come along and bring new AFC, if they start with nothing and they have no legacy systems there, then maybe open payments is the right thing to do if there's 100% penetration from the banks. But if there's not, who's the issuer of last resort to those customers where you have to address things like social inclusion? So you have to look at the environment with which it's being put in. and ensure that you have a solution to suit. As I say, Chicago decided that's not the answer. You know, disposable cards for the cash payers, rather than be an issue of last resort. So.
Right. Okay, perfect. Right, so far so good. One thing I'd like to touch on now is the lessons learned. One advantage we have this year, Transport Ticketing 2015, is that TfL has gone live. Other cities have gone a step further on that journey. So, is there anything, and I'm going to look at Matthew and Paul, anything that you would have done differently now that you're actually over the hurdle, have gone live? Are there things that you would have done differently and you could effectively share with the audience as things to think about?
That's a very interesting question and a very hard one to answer. And we can all look back and say, crikey, there were things you wish we'd done differently, but actually, I think Mike's presentation this morning displayed that, not only did we thought about it a lot, we took our time. I mean, dare I say it, some of us remember us that we were going to deliver in 2012, 2013. We took our time, and I do not apologise for that, because we needed to get it right. We needed to think through things. The reason card crash wasn't a problem was because we spent 9 months telling everyone about card crash in advance. So that issue is, it's never going to be easy and simple, and we've learned some things about how to deal with it. Hopefully for others in the future, they'll have their own problems, their own issues, but I can't say there's one thing we'd want to change.
I think from the supplier side, I mean, in the case of London, there's no doubt about it, it was thought through to the nth degree. We had a lot of challenges in terms of trying to help the industry forward. We were working with the labs to rewrite test specs. There was no concept of a contactless only terminal that somebody could certify. They didn't know where to start in terms of actually being able to give you a piece of paper to allow you to go live. And yes, it's groundbreaking. Yes, it's painful. But if it's thought through and done in a methodical fashion, then you get the benefits of a smooth rollout, as we saw. Part of the challenge is you need to ensure that you have the staying power to see it through. That's from the supplier, that's from the operator. You've got to have that conviction behind the vision
and
to see it through.
So I could add to that also the rest of the industry. I mean, a lot of the work we did in the UK, with UKCA, the UK Card Association, with the issuing banks, was to make sure that everyone's at the same page. So it's not just an operator in a city going live. It is the infrastructure, the knowledge, the local bank branches to be able to address simple questions. What is card clash? So I think it's a general effort across the industry, I should say the industries, to effectively get to the hurdle. Any other city that want to do it, one of my clear messages is do not underestimate the entire population, so including payment industry, the banking industry, and your future new customers.
Just to add, I mean, anyone who's sort of embarking down this route, there's a lot of anecdotes that sort of came out of various security audits that were done in terms of brooms being more expensive than readers inside bus depots, and that's what got secured. That was worth something to someone. The readers were left out, and therefore, from a security point of view, well, you can't have that. You have to change people's minds and understanding, and you'd be amazed at the level in the organisation you have to go, and policy has to permeate to facilitate this kind of overpayment acceptance and the costs that then go with that.
So I think we've seen, the kind of suitability from a transport industry point of view. But can I now flip the question to the other side and say, what would you expect from the payment and banking industry in the coming years to make it even easier going forward? And I'm looking at Yannick and Paul. I'll throw a look at you eventually. So Yannick, what would you expect? How would you expect the payments industry to move to make it even easier going forward?
I was going to say, I mean, the standardisation that's existed has been fantastic. Standards exist, as we heard this morning, standards exist to try and help people through and to sort of solidify what's there. Various banking standards get reinterpreted by various parties for their own acquiring banks for their own purposes. And it can be painful if somebody's interpreting that specification for the first time, applying it for the first time. vary my learning curve. As an industry, if you can somehow find a way of learning together, so that you, whether it's acquiring you're all joined at the hip, so that it's not every time a system is being rolled out, you feel like you're going back to square one. It has, it's been a long journey. Someone's got a few more grey hairs. Somebody's only gone through it, but and it's having done it once, you really don't go through it again.
For a company like Overture, so we are more focused on designing cars for payment. And in fact, five years ago, we don't take very care about the speed of the transaction. But when EV open payment arrived on the market, the transport use was requested, we focus more on development and speed. When you are developing a payment card, you focus also on security. And then you have kind of requirements which are not which are opposite to speed and security. So it's why now Overture is developing banking cards and taking the speed in consideration. The scheme is also requested to have this speed there. So now we have products which are very fast, so that it can be used on the transport system. And we, I think, speed up the use of this car on this transit system, because today, for Overture, for instance, we have products which are very fast, and then you can run a transaction under 5 milliseconds without problem.
And I guess that comes back to one of Mike's point this morning, the speed still being a challenge. Actually, technology companies are now addressing this, and hopefully the future will be even smoother from all aspects. So before I ask, the final views from our panelists, I think it's time for questions in the audience. So if you have any questions for any of us, there's a question at the back, in the middle.
Yeah. Hello, my name is Ignacio Martin. I run a bus company in the north of Spain. My question is for any of the panelists, really. Is regarding the cost of EMV, as you said, is cheaper than running a traditional My Fair Desfire scheme such as in London. And the question is, how can that be possible? Which bits of the value chain in an EMV ecosystem make that possible as opposed to the traditional Desfire proposition where you get the money in advance, then there's no credit risk, the machinery is super tested, and how can it be cheaper in a new environment when you need 8 years to develop and there's credit risk, you get paid post-payment, investment in machinery, etc.
So again, you've got to look at each individual operator. So again, I have a lot of fixed infrastructure equipment and all my staff. The savings for us were driven out of customer servicing costs. Always put the customer at the centre of everything that we do, and to think through how our staff are helping them top up their Oyster card, deal with problems on their Oyster card, rectify max fares because of that card-centric system, about all the top-ups and commissions at shops that are taking place. There are a lot of costs that were driven there. Coming back to this point, you've got to explain to everyone and run a ticketing system, because you're getting them to convert their money to either tickets or Oyster cash. With the contactless card, it just goes away. You remove that business process. So if you're going to remove that business process, for us that has a lot of people on stations answering a lot of questions, it helps us reduce those costs. So again, it's about what offer you've got there and how those staff costs are being incurred. So that's where we've made the savings.
Thank you.
We had a question here in the middle.
Arnold Cohen, Transport for London. It's a bit of a wacky question, I warn you. And I would like to hear your views as well, Paul. So starting from the proposition that it's a very widely accessible card and it's going to be increasingly ubiquitous. It's also very flexible. We got a taste of that with the Chicago presentation this morning. But there is the problem, somebody raised the issue of elsewhere around Britain, there isn't the spending power in London. So I'm starting to think about alternative ways of using it. And I'm thinking, could you load products on it? We talked about, well, not we, it has been talked about, have ticket in the cloud associated with an EMV card. And then it comes about the idea, what about actually putting a purse on, or associating a purse with an EMV card, on the grounds that some people like budgeting small amounts? Could that work? Could it be just one of a range of products, as well as the ordinary pay after you go, if you like, but also including things like carnets and whatever is fashionable around other parts of the country?
And actually, fashionable around the world, I mean, this is a very common scenario. So I'd like to touch on the first part of the question, which was around the ubiquity. This is going to be reinforced in the coming years. Visa Europe has mandated contactless acceptance, so all stores in the next 5 years will start accepting contactless. It's going to become the norm. So we're going to see pretty much everybody that has at least one bank card have at least one way of paying with contactless, whether it's a card or a phone or a wearable. So the future is definitely going to be more ubiquity, more standardization around contactless. Now, on the question around, you know, having data stored on the cards, having, you know, a purse, this technology is associated with the card. So taking in the cloud.
Yeah, back office.
So in the back office, this is theoretically possible. I mean, we've had similar implementations which are not using bank cards, but do exist for, you know, the smart city concept with memberships. This is possible. With bank cards, it is going to be officially possible theoretically next month. That's a project we're working on. So there is nothing preventing any operator from doing this, because ultimately the bank card for you just represents a token, an item of identification, and if it's linked with anything in the back office, which is effectively your products, this is outside of our kind of our remit, the Visa remit, because this is really between you and your customer. I don't know if any of you would.
Yeah, I mean, the venture card allows you to buy a weekly, monthly pack associated with your EMV card, and it's automatically taken into account when you travel. So it's a common concept, and it's being deployed out there.
Never had the purse.
The purse, for most people, the idea of trying to segregate the value away for as a separate product, you kind of fall into the realm of, as Matthew was saying, that you're converting it into currency to then go and use it. So quite often some of the savings you're anticipating by accepting that method of payment then don't really materialise, because all you've done is put it onto different technology, which you've now had to incur additional cost in supporting.
It's different technology, different infrastructure, different back office.
I understand. But the Ventura solution allows you, so you can have, it is an open payment card, it can be an open payment card, and you have a separate balance, which is just a Ventura account, and you can get exactly that situation. So if you register that card as an open payment card to be used out in the wild, the Ventura element of it, the closed loop part of it, is just CTA credit, will stay as a CTA credit account. That's exactly the situation you're describing.
Hello, Gregers Mogensen, Rejsekort Denmark. Question, and it may be primarily to Paul from Visa. Can you confirm to us that all card providers, all issuing banks, will levy no fee when the cards are used for this?
So levy no fee, as we said today, internationally, domestically. I mean, ultimately, in terms of what the issuer can charge a card holder, is the fundamentals of their.
No, I'm talking about the charging the merchant.
The issuer charging. So
no, or the payment provider or whoever. When someone comes to our shop in Denmark and buys a ticket and pays with a payment card, we pay someone a fee for allowing the customer to pay with that card, somewhere in the order of 1 to 2%. Rumors will have it that not all banks in all nations are so kind as those in London are, not to charge that fee.
Okay. I mean, that's a completely valid question. I mean, the official Visa message, and I'll get in trouble with my colleagues in the room today, we are only obviously allowed to talk about the fees that we apply the Visa and the banks, so that's our direct customers. What happens between an acquirer and their merchants and their processors. We are not regulated. We're not allowed to say what it is. We have a view of it sometimes, but this is not something that is in direct control. And I think this is a lot more important between the merchant and their partner, which can be payment processor, can be an acquirer, to have discussions, because very often it's a matter of scale, how many transactions you have, and also obviously long-term relationships, good partnerships can really get better results in this. And I think usually I would look at a merchant, I would look at a payment processor to kind of answer those kind of questions, because from our perspective, we are looking at our ecosystem, which is the acquirer, the issuer, and we know.
Someone have to answer that question before that question of that can be asked.
Can I just put an answer here as well? Just again, from what's going on in Budapest at the moment, and I know everyone knows this better than I do, but they obviously want EMV. They put that in their spec. They've gone for that process, but it's a discussion between local issuers and the Transit Authority over how they want to implement those rules. And both parties have to be comfortable about how they're going to do that. So in the UK, we had long discussions with schemes and issuers, and we came up with a solution that works for the UK market. And other countries will have to go through that debate and discussion, because if it's not a win-win situation, it isn't going to move forward. So you've got to end up in the right solution, and it may involve different transit models, different ways of doing things. But Budapest, as an example, is looking at the problem differently, because the issuers want to do something different.